دولة رئيس مجلس الوزراء في دولة فلسطين.
I thank His Excellency the Prime Minister of the State of Palestine.
بذلك نكون قد استمعنا إلى آخر المتكلمين.
We have thus listened to the last speaker in the opening segment of this conference. Your Excellencies, Your Highnesses, ladies and gentlemen, before starting the general debate, and if the conference approves, I would like to suggest that we would use the rules of procedure of the General Assembly, mutatis mutandis, in particular concerning the conduct of its business, and that each state participating in the conference shall have one vote. We shall proceed accordingly.
أعطي الكلمة الآن إلى
I now hand the floor to my fellow co-chair, His Excellency Jean-Noël Barrot, Minister for Europe and Foreign Affairs of France.
J'invite à présent.
I now invite His Excellency Sheikh Mohammed bin Abdul Rahman bin Jasmin Al Thani, Prime Minister and Minister for Foreign Affairs of the State of Qatar, to address the conference.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم.
In the name of Allah, most gracious, most merciful. Your Highness, Prince Faisal bin Farhan Al Saud, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Brotherly Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Your Excellency, Mr. Jean-Noël Barrot, Minister of Foreign Affairs of the Friendly Republic of France. Your Excellency, Secretary General of the United Nations, Your Excellency, President of the General Assembly, Your Excellencies, Your Highnesses, ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I would like to express our appreciation to His Excellency President Emmanuel Macron, the President of the French Republic, and His Highness Prince Mohammed bin Salman, the Crown Prince of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, for taking the initiative to hold this historic conference under the sponsorship of the United Nations. The conference that tackles one of the longest unresolved issues in terms of the maintenance of international peace and security. Your Excellencies, this conference is a glimmer of hope. However, we are at a critical juncture in the region. A devastating war launched by Israel on the Gaza Strip for more than 2 years, and an escalating humanitarian crisis where more than 2 million people suffer, mostly women and children. And in one of the most brutal and cruel moments in this crisis, we have seen scenes that are a stigma and long lines of the suffering in anguish, waiting for crumbs to end their starvation. How can we build a future on the bodies of those who die of hunger? And how can we reach peace as we see this amount of killing, humiliation, and starvation? In this regard, the State of Qatar has made every diplomatic effort to stem the bloodshed and to have the prisoners and hostages released. And in light of our principal position, we have condemned the targeting of civilians. However, we totally reject double standards. Human beings are human beings. Children are children. And none of us has the right to decide on the right of civilians to live based on political or racial or other criteria. Starvation and the targeting of hospitals has been used as a method of war in a precedent that we cannot accept, as if these are common practices in any conflict from now on. And the State of Qatar reaffirms once again its total rejection of the use of food as a tool to bring pressure to bear or a method of war or a weapon in war. And we condemn blockade and forced displacement against civilians and defenseless civilians, and the use and the targeting of vital facilities, hospitals, and shelters in a violation of international law and international norms. The efforts for mediation by Qatar, the US, and Egypt did bear fruit, namely the entry of significant aid and the release of prisoners and hostages from both sides. Despite multiple obstacles and attempts to block humanitarian aid and to demonize the mediators, despite all this, we continue in our path towards a ceasefire, a permanent ceasefire, to end the crisis and to start the effort for reconstruction and recovery. This requires that all parties act responsibly and support all efforts to reach such goal. Your Excellencies, the war on the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip did not just lead to immense, unprecedented suffering for defenseless civilians, but it has led to a violation of international law and universal norms on which the international system has been built on since the end of World War II. It has proven that force cannot liquidate the question of Palestine. It has only aggravated the question by adding to the grievances the feelings of hurt and pain that will remain a wound that will never heal. The devastating catastrophe of war and its political failure mean that there is no alternative to a just and comprehensive settlement for the question of Palestine. And the key is to acknowledge that the Palestinian people have been subjected to injustice and to bring about justice that is 80 years late. Based on our principled support for peace, the State of Qatar fully supports the objectives of this conference, and we seek to have an active and a positive role towards the implementation of the two-state solution. And we have co-chaired with Canada and Mexico the third working group on the narratives for peace. And we have addressed in this working group important issues, and we have reached important conclusions that would lead to making this conference a success. To achieve a conducive environment for peace, there is a need to support positive narratives that support peace between the two sides that will be based on relinquishing violence and addressing attempts to dehumanize the other. Your Excellencies, the State of Qatar stresses its firm position vis-à-vis the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine based on the principles of international law and the rules of international legitimacy based on the two-state solution as the only viable practical solution to end the conflict and to achieve just and comprehensive peace. Hence, the State of Qatar calls for a clear and unified international position that rejects all practices that hinder negotiations and chances for comprehensive and just peace. Here we welcome the recognition by a number of states of the State of Palestine in the West Bank and the Gaza Strip based on the 1967 borders, because we believe this is a vital step towards achieving security and stability internationally and regionally. We also welcome the commitment by the Friendly Republic of France to recognize the State of Palestine next September. Ladies and gentlemen, holding this conference represents the collective will of the international community to translate words into actions and to actively contribute towards the peaceful settlement of the question of Palestine in all its dimensions. The international community has a responsibility to create an environment conducive to reaching a comprehensive and just peace, to bring back the strong role of international legitimacy after this horrific war and to provide humanitarian, economic, and political necessary support. We hope that this conference would represent a turning point that would lead to tangible commitments, not just statements, and would pave the way towards practical steps towards the implementation of the two-state solution, towards a comprehensive, just, and permanent and lasting settlement of the cause, and would lead to stability in the entire region. I thank you.